I want to speak to you about a grave over in Old Montefiore Cemetery. The Chabadniks, the Lubavitchers, many of them think that this is the tomb of the Messiah. However, many of them also admit that it is not an empty grave. Now, this is a horrendous admission because the scriptures say the Messiah will not see shachat, his body will not see decay. So if you have a decaying body, it is a true indication that the occupant of that tomb is not the Moshiach ben David. Now, there are other things that would disqualify any candidate, but this one above all. And right here, I'm looking at a book written by these people, and it says, "The grave is not empty. It contains the remains of a body." Now, they go on in the literature of the Lubavitchers, this ultra-Orthodox Hasidic sect that has its headquarters in Brooklyn. And they try to show that even though the grave is not empty, because of who this man was, I'm talking about Rabbi Schneerson, the Rebbe of the Lubavitcher sect, because of what he did and who he was, his grave doesn't have to be empty. And they go through all kinds of intellectual backflips to prove this. Basically, they have a doctrine where his person is concealed, and we can't see him. But he's already overcome death because he's what they call a tzaddik gamur, a complete righteous man who has overcome the drive to sin, and therefore while he was alive, he was the same as dead, and so death really didn't touch him. So even if his body was moldering in the grave, this was irrelevant. And this is their way of trying to explain away the horrendous problem here, which is a rotting body. We know from the reliable historical documents that the Mashiach was able to dematerialize and materialize. On the road to Emmaus, he dematerialized at the breaking of the matzot. In the upper room, he materialized even though the doors were locked. That means that the reason they found the Takrichim totally undisturbed was because he did not have to break out of it like you would have to try to do a Houdini act and be an escape artist from a mummy encasement. No, he simply dematerialized, and then he took the head shroud and neatly placed it beside the body shroud. And this was what brought Yohanan to faith. When he looked in the empty tomb and he saw that, he knew immediately that the Mashiach had overcome death and brought immortality to light. Even before the resurrection appearances, he already had emunah. Now, this is important because when I did the Orthodox Jewish Bible, I translated it specifically for the Lubavitchers because they're so close in so many ways to Orthodox faith in the resurrection of the Mashiach. And all it would take is for the Ruach HaKodesh to bring them one step further and have real saving faith. And so the thing that I want to talk to you about is a little word called histalkus. And where is this word found? It's found in several places in the Orthodox Jewish Bible. But the basic idea is a departure. Yes, it's a euphemism for death. But the idea is not the total annihilation that you would think of when you think of the soul separating from the body and going off into Gehinnom or wherever it goes. There's a word, patira, meaning separation, death separation. We have the word niftar, the departed. Niftar, Lagan Eden, it means to depart to paradise. Remember, he said to the Ganef on the tree, today you will be with me in Gan Eden. In other words, you may be a niftar, in a deceased person, but you are going to depart and be with Mashiach. You're going to depart and be with Mashiach in Gan Eden. And this is the blessed hope that we have. Of course, we know those who are alive and remain will be caught up to be with the Lord in the air. And so we will depart and be with Mashiach forever. But the idea that they have in Kabbalah and in the Tanya and the other Lubavitcher doctrines is the idea that every Jew has two souls. Now, this is not in the Bible. But anyway, one is the source of the Yetzer Hara, and one is the source of the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, the bad inclination. And if a tzaddik, if a Rebbe like Schneerson could overcome the evil inclination and become a complete tzaddik, then he would have defeated death, so to speak. And even if his body were rotting, and even if his body were in the grave, and even if the grave was not empty, he would still be a candidate for the Mashiach. But you know what? This is all Buba Mainza, because Mashiach did not have an evil inclination. Why not? Because his father was not the fallen Adam Kadmon, first man. His father was Elohim Avinu. He was born of a Ha'alma Betula virgin. He was born without sin. He was a lamb without spot. 1 Kepha chapter 1, verse 19. He was a sympathetic Kohen Le'olam al Divrati Melchizedek, Hebrews 4:15, Hebrews 7:26, because he was tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. And 1 Timothy 3:16 tells us that the mystery of our religion, the mystery of God, he's manifested in the flesh. The Zud Punderoibisher is manifested in the flesh. Now, why would you want to give up all that we have for a pseudo Mashiach who is moldering in the grave, who has gone into putrefaction, just for the sake of your doctrines? Why would you want to do that? I want to pray right now for every Lubavitcher. I went down to Crown Heights yesterday, and I took a box of Orthodox Jewish Bibles and I put them all over Crown Heights. And I prayed over every one as I carefully put the seed. It says the sower goes out to sow seed. I asked God for good ground. So right now I'm going to pray, Lord, I pray right now for every Lubavitcher, for every Chabadnik, not only in Crown Heights, but all over the world, all the emissaries that are going to the ends of the earth, preaching a false Messiah, a false hope. They do not have an empty tomb in Old Montefiore Cemetery. They have a body that is going into putrefaction, that shows clearly there's no Psalm 16 warrant to say this is the Mashiach, because Mashiach will not see Shachat. Lord, I pray right now that you would bring them to a repentance, a teshuvah, that they would see the Shachat, the corruption of their own soul, and that they would see the beauty of holiness in the true Mashiach, the Lamb without slaughter. the Lamb who came to die, the Lamb who came to die on Pesach, who came to make his departure, his exodus from Jerusalem, to lead us out in a great exodus of redemption and Geulah, salvation. And I pray right now for the teshuvah, the repentance of every Chabadnik. And oh God, may they see the glory of the one that they have not understood until now. May they see what happened, how he did come. He did make his appearance. He did make his Histalkus Mavet, his Tehiyas Hamasim resurrection, his Aliyah L'Shamayim ascension. And what did the Malachim say? That this one that you see now ascending, you will see again at the Habiyah Hashaniyah, the second coming. The one that you're looking at will come again. Hallelujah. So Lord, we thank you that there's going to be a reversal of the ascension, and it's called the second coming. And it's going to happen as surely as you put a film in a projector and you roll the film one direction, and then you reverse the direction and you roll the film the opposite direction. So the Lord is going to roll the film of the reality of history. And the one who made his historical Aliyah L'Shamayim is going to make his historical Habiyah Hashaniyah, his second coming. And I pray, dear God, for every one of those Orthodox Jewish Bibles that was placed in Crown Heights yesterday, that the word will not return void, and we'll give you the praise. And everybody said,